Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about an issue that plagues this space, and we will never recover from it, and that is writing advice. That is the plague of this idea that there are these golden rules that if only you follow them, if only you read the correct writing advice books and follow the correct writer's schedule and just do something objectively correct and do everything exactly as specified in some specific way, then you will have an objectively good story that nobody can criticize unless they are an idiot. And it feels like so many people that I've talked to, that I've listened to, that I've observed in writing conversation believe that there is this objective idea of writing perfectly, that they can get around being criticized, and that they can somehow be the person that pleases everybody. And if they can't please you, well, it's only because you're dumb. There is an obsession with reading how-tos and watching videos on tropes to avoid that is somehow going to make you an expert writer without ever doing the work, and will suddenly make it easy and suddenly make you knowledgeable, as if watching exercise videos is going to burn off the calories. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. I've done so many experiments, it doesn't work. But with that said, I got a couple of things that I know that I want to talk about that are leaned into. Then I have a side commentary in general, and that's going to be another casual video, so thanks for hanging out. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemwy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out, or a book that is coming out. If you submit your first chapter and the cover to that first chapter will be read here to hopefully help more readers find your work. Sometimes it works on me. I hope that it works on other people. You just know that I bought some books. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including your local library upon request. If you read them, we can fangirl together. That is an option, but these guys may not be the ones you want to fangirl over. Maybe you're going to want to fan over the Westies, which I can't blame you. Between the men and the women in that series, there is a lot to swoon over, but they're coming. They're not here yet. We're working on it. So with that said, let's jump into the topic. Again, before we get into any of this though, just remember, I am an idiot. That's the biggest thing. And there is no singular way, no singular opinion about writing. None. The best thing that you can in general do is expose yourself to as many different ideas, as many different forms as you can, and try out different things to see what you like and what you don't like. And that includes reading. Reading is one of the most important things that you can do as a writer. And I'm not talking about reading craft books. I'm talking about reading fiction, specifically contemporary fiction, specifically fiction in the genre that you want to write in, at least sometimes. But reading widely is very helpful. And some of the things that reading helps you with is that it lets you see what other people are doing. It lets you see how people have done things. How do people set up scenes? It lets you see what you like, whether it is in the setting, whether it is in the world building, whether it is in the character interactions, the showing of a character. I started highlighting stuff forever ago in graduate school when I started seeing things that I liked, so that I have references on my shelf of like, okay, how did that person use chapter breaks to create new settings? And so I have references. Oh, how did that person start their story out? How did this person start their story out? How did that person do settings in general? How does this person do dialogue? And so like I have those references. And it also can help boost your confidence because you see not only the things that you like, but the things that you don't like. And you also get to see authors that you love and stories that you love that may have imperfect parts, but those imperfect parts show you that your story does not have to be perfect. So most of the questions that I've ever received or ever heard that come from writers is, can I do this? Well, has this ever been done? The answer can be found by reading. Yes, you can do that. How do I do this? Go and read some books about this thing. If you're looking for advice on how do other people handle X, Y, and Z, go and see how other people have handled it. And then you can determine if you like or don't like the way that those other people did those things, and how you can adjust it in your story if you didn't like it, because now you know what to avoid, or try to reverse engineer something if you did like it, so you can try to input it in your style, in your work. So reading is extremely helpful, and always notating what you like or don't like is extremely helpful. And that's one of the reasons why I do the book reviews on this channel the way that I do, and why I read the way that I do. It's a blessing and a curse because it's harder to enjoy books, but also I think I'm just picky when it comes to books. So there is that. Now, some of the curses that we have had to deal with in the writing community because of this, I'm going to go through those. The first one is this idea of a single set of rules. Like, Google best writing advice, and you're often going to come up with a handful of rules that are exactly the same or fairly similar, even with videos on YouTube where it's like the worst decisions, the best decisions. And some of them, I have seen some helpful stuff that I'm like, I agree with that. Often not, though. And it's just as important to be critical of advice as it is to be of fiction, because you need to understand the reason behind the rules before you use them or you ignore them. Like, one thing that people often say is don't start your book out with a dream sequence. Obviously, you can start your book out with a dream sequence, but you want to understand why it is an uphill battle, or why it's a struggle to do a dream sequence, or anything else that is a false start. So the dream sequence becomes an issue, or can be difficult, because it sets your reader up with this expectation of what the story is going to be, what the setting is, who the characters are, what the drive of the story is. And then after spending however long it is in that dream sequence, ending it abruptly and then going, haha, that wasn't actually the start. And it's only a more mild version of doing the entire story, or even the entire series, and then doing it was all a dream. Because then you just said everything that we just went through was pointless. And so that's why it can be difficult. Now, if you're aware of the reason why it is difficult, then it makes you better equipped for how to do it effectively. And then you can start looking at, well, what other writers started out with a dream sequence that did it effectively where it wasn't annoying? Because you can. You just have to be careful about it. Or you have to be like, I'm cool with pissing everyone off in that first bit. Another thing which would take me to Will Jordan's, this is not a dream sequence. When we read Will Jordan's zombie book, Dark Harvest, and there were 2 prologues, but one was unmarked, and it had this idea that it was set up in the Dyatlov Pass incident. So then you have the first prologue that has this girl from an Aboriginal village in Russia with this rock that is seemingly cursed, and then it switches over to the Dyatlov Pass people, mountaineers. You would think that the thing with the young girl would be the prologue to set up a story about the Dyatlov Pass people. However, the Dyatlov Pass people was also a prologue, which then skipped into the main action hero man in the middle of the Middle East war. So you had 2 false starts, and that's why that's annoying, because you get like 10%, 20% of the, was it 15? It was like 10 to 15% of the way through the story with 2 false starts. So that's why that is an issue. Save the Cat is another curse that was thrown upon our lives as writers. Save the Cat is an often referred to writing manual that people use that is more inspired by movie arcs than it is by books. And it is often used to set up stories, but it is a copy-paste story structure, and it doesn't allow for creativity. So people copy it so much, and it forces people, or people learn to do things by structure. So then instead of naturally following inclinations of characters, instead it's marking these, okay, I need to do this by this percent, this by that percent, this by that percent. And then you just get copy paste stories with characters that don't make any sense because they're making decisions based on plot, not based on character. You'll get from A to Z with 0 surprises and zero characterization. And then people read Save the Cat and think that they are writing well, and it's predictable and boring. And then every story is the same, but with different character names inserted. There are 2 directions people go with adverbs and adjectives. It's either using them too often or not using them at all. Remove all adjectives / adverbs, or use them a lot. And by using them a lot, overdoing it, you kind of erase them all. You mess up the pacing of your writing, because your language, your prose do have a rhythm. And so the more syllables that you add in, the more that your rhythm changes. The more that your sentences are similar or different, the rhythm changes. And so that's something you need to keep in mind. And there is no overabundance or lack thereof. Your use of adverbs and adjectives are going to affect your style of writing, your voice, and also be affected by your characterization. So there is not one way to use adverbs or adjectives. Using them at all is not a problem, though. My recommendation would be to be careful. But again, it is about learning what the rules are, why they are there. So then when you break them, you do so with the knowledge of why you are doing it, which makes all the difference. The next big thing on TikTok has also been a curse, a plague on society for two reasons. Number one, TikTok obviously has been great for indie authors and pushing a lot of authors to being able to sell a lot of books. It has also made a lot of YouTube careers and TikTok careers in talking about these indie books. What sucks is that most of these books on TikTok are poorly written porn. And worst of all is that because they are so popular and they are so ridiculously written, that you can get a ton of views by talking about them specifically, but then that means that everybody is just talking about poorly written porn for the views instead of reading good books. It just destroys book discussion. Is a lot of people are not reading books that they actually want to read or to explore, because instead they would prefer either to not get the FOMO, or they don't want to look stupid because a lot of other people are enjoying these books. They don't want to be jumped on as a hater, or they want the views, which you can get by saying, look at how ridiculous this porn is, and then ridiculing the porn in real life. And you know that they're going to be bad. It's like every month, I swear I see a new video that says, TikTok lied to me again, the worst book on TikTok. Every month is a new, the worst book on TikTok. Like, I'm not saying all books that are recommended on TikTok or blow up on TikTok are bad, but like, it's got a reputation now. It has hurt discourse because it makes it difficult to find other books or to talk about other books when everybody is like doing stuff just for the views. And then you've got the escalation of extreme content because, well, last month was so extreme and ridiculous. This month we have to get even more extreme or ridiculous or we won't be talked about. And so it just is always getting worse. Another thing that has cursed the writing community, I know that I don't preface it in everything that I say, so it can happen, but I do try to make it clear that all of my opinions are just my opinions based on my preferences and interests. But there are a lot of rules that are given out there that are also just treated as if they're rules and not preferences or the way that somebody does things. And so then somebody will hear those things and then use those and act like they are never changing and that everybody has to always do those specific things. And if you don't do those things, then you're some kind of bad person or a bad writer. There's also like somebody might have advice that they say now or say like, I do this thing now. And then 6 years from now, they do something different in their books. And then they're called a hypocrite because they did something different. People's methods change, people's writing changes. It happens, and you can't really hold somebody to one thing, especially if somebody is going to explore writing choices. Another thing that has cursed, another issue that has plagued the writing industry is porn. And I know that there are plenty of people that don't think this. I get to see comments all the time from people that are porn enthusiasts. And if you like it, have yourself a golly good time. I get to be shamed every time I say I don't prefer porn. I get to be shamed every time I say I don't think that children need to be handed porn. It's funny that at one point you could say that it was for 18 plus, and now there are people saying you should hand it to 8-year-olds because some of them are old enough, are mature enough for that pornography. Interesting choice of words there, my friend. But the fact that porn is being pushed into a lot of things, people hide it in things, they lie to you about what they are writing, and they lie to you about there being kink in their work. And that is a specific thing, by the way. Hiding your kink and tricking people into reading your kink is inappropriate. People will sell things with the wrong genre label on it, with the covers that hide that it is pornography. If you don't want me to call it pornography, every time I say erotica, every time I say smut, somebody is like, well, what does that mean? I'm kind of done with it. Finally, you also have the competition, the curse in the conversation between commercial fiction and literary fiction, there is a difference and they are valuable. I read an article and talked about it on here a little while ago about the difference between, about somebody saying to destroy literary fiction and the idea of literary fiction because they didn't like it and they thought that it made commercial fiction a lesser. But commercial fiction is literally easier to sell, and it is different than literary fiction because of the focuses on it, the character focus versus the plot focus, the literary conventions, the genre conventions in commercial fiction versus literary fiction. They are different, and it does matter to the reader. If you talk to somebody about reading a magical realism book who likes high fantasy, it does matter because the focuses are different. It is a different readership, and recognizing the differences in these genres is very important to both the author's success and the reader's happiness. And so I don't see the point in deleting multiple genres because somebody feels inferior by them when it actually just helps readers find exactly what they're working or what they're looking for. I have no idea how to characterize these. Here are a couple of ways in which people approach fiction and give fiction comments that don't really mean much. I don't know. This is just a side rant of things that I've noticed, okay? Nice world building is usually a fake comment. When I'm reading reviews or when I'm seeing feedback on things and it is nice world building and that's pretty much all that it is, usually that's the thing that you say when you don't have anything nice to say, can't think of anything, because then you're like, what world building? This was issue 1 with like 70 pages. We didn't get any world building in this. There are many people, it seems, that also use the length of a book to measure how good it is, so they continue to write as long as they possibly can. I personally think that this is something that came from Kindle Unlimited, because with Kindle Unlimited, you get paid by the number of pages that people read, and so then people who put their books into Kindle Unlimited were tempted to make their books longer and like drag them out with unnecessary information, unnecessary storylines, to just drag the plot out for 700 pages so that they get paid more money. And then that transferred into traditional publishing where stuff is like unnecessarily long. And you can have long books, but there are things that are definitely unnecessarily long, okay? Not every book needs to be 700 pages. But that's just me. Characterization, what is likable or unlikable? There are many that seem to be unable to accept, and you can like whatever you like. Don't even take this as anything otherwise. If you need to like your main character in order to read the book, have at it. But if a character is unlikable or says unlikable things, says mean things, it is no comment at the reader. It is no comment at some actual belief of the author towards you if you fall into that demographic. And some take character opinions too seriously, too personally. A character doesn't have to be likable to be interesting, but an unlikable character can also lose the interest of a reader if they are not interesting. It's just, yeah. Another bad comment is to never cut anything as if all words are precious. I have seen too many indie authors that not only do they write, I don't even know if they really think that all of their words are precious or if they're just too lazy to go back and edit. Look, I'm being mean. This is, I'm sorry. This is a cope video, I guess now. So I've seen too many indie authors that go, no, everything that I do is just like, I never need to go back and cut a word because I wrote them in the first place. If that's going to be your thing, then do not be surprised if somebody goes, this is overwritten, okay? You can write whatever you want to write. I don't have respect for people that can't cut words, that can't edit their work, that can't read their book a second time. If you edit in place, I am not your reader. That's all that I'm going to say on that. There's also the people who will dismiss your works because of political reasons, whether it is for you personally or what they believe that your book or what they believe your book to be. There are also the personal dismissals of assumptions of who you are as a person. So, I mean, obviously people can choose who to pick and read as they feel like, but just it's kind of crappy to try to control who other people read based on your personal or political dismissals and then try to force others to be in that same zone. You can also run into the situation where somebody already hates you, they already think the worst of you, so then your book is already the worst and they take everything in your book in the worst possible way. They try to remove you from your own book by just destroying your voice, destroying your narrative. I mean, it can happen to any of us, really. And if that's the case, like if you're the author, I mean, just ignore those kinds of comments. If the person doesn't like you, they're not going to like you more by continuing to engage. There are also the people that'll start reading your book. If you ever talk about books or reading, that will call you a hypocrite. If you do anything that may be constituted as a similar thing. And that could just be like, I remember with the ISOM, not ISOM, it was the Yaira comic, where she beats somebody up in prison, and there were people saying that is the same as Captain Marvel beating somebody up in that movie. And it's just, if you criticize that and then did the same thing, then now you're a hypocrite. But you have to take into consideration all of the other information around it. And even then, I learned that the Captain Marvel thing was a deleted scene and not actually in the movie. I don't know. I never saw Captain Marvel, but like, people are very quick to call you a hypocrite, especially if you said one thing and then you do something kind of looks like something that you said not to do. And again, that even counts for if you gave advice or said you something 10 years ago and then now you've changed your mind on it, as if you're never allowed to change your mind. Anything that you say will be used as a blanket. There is no such thing as a single critique. So that kind of goes with the last one. Whenever I am reading a book, I always try to make my criticisms specific to that book and the display in that book, because while I might criticize something in this book, it may actually be well done in another book. And so that's something that makes a book discussion difficult, is because if you say that you didn't like this in this book, but then in another book you say you do like it, somebody will often go, well, why is it okay here but not over there? Now you're just lying because you said one was bad. Critiques are generally single off. And that is why even when I am doing one-on-ones, I still have to write out when somebody doesn't understand basic grammar, because just because I did grammar corrections on that one doesn't mean that I can't do grammar corrections on this one, because they're separate projects. Another piece of bad advice is to write like authors you don't even read, but you remember their names from school. They must be good writers, even if you don't read them, especially not for fun. Write like them. You know their names for a reason. Duh. It's all of these references to all of these old classics from 60, 70 plus years ago that everybody read as assignments in school and then says, these were the great books. Why don't people write these anymore? But nobody reads those for fun. Sometimes when it comes to writing discussion, it feels like it isn't about actually talking about how you write, talking about the craft. And it's not about helping somebody improve and finding their voice and finding their story and pulling out who they are in their stories or pulling out who their characters are. It's more about making others write like the critic, or dragging somebody down because they just don't like you. In my opinion, there are 3 different types of writing advice that you can generally receive. One is by repeating popular writing advice. 2 is by sharing advice or techniques based on what you yourself do or how you problem solve and what that looks like. Or 3, sharing advice-based trends, market research, etc. Like, this is very common in this. This is what is commonly used in this. These 3 things aren't necessarily the same, though there can be overlap. But if you share advice that isn't how you write, but you are just parroting the popular, or you generally critique things and you don't analyze your own work as much, you run the risk of falling into those traps of bad because you're blinded by your own work, as we all are. Like, you need to constantly review your own work, compare your own work, and read other people's works, and then compare your work to their work in the editing phase, so that you can see if you're doing anything that might be difficult. And you need other eyeballs on it that are not the eyeballs of consumers first. They are not your test readers unless they know that they're your test readers. But if they pay for your book, they're customers, not test readers. You take what you want when you're listening to people, not just watching it and saying that you like something because everybody else likes it and then changing your mind when other people don't like it. I got a master's degree in creative writing, and I could explain why I make the choices that I make, how I read, why I read the way that I do, how I take apart a story, and what the focuses of all of my books are. That doesn't guarantee that people will either like what I do or think that any of it is any good. I did all of that stuff before starting a YouTube channel because I wanted to pursue writing and learn to do it better. And I started a YouTube channel to talk about books specifically, but then to sort of talk about some of this other stuff, as I just had a place to do it. And now I just also hang out and play games. But my credentials won't stop people from saying my books are garbage or from not enjoying my books. And there's nothing that I can do or you can do or anybody can do to make everybody think or enjoy your books or to say your books are well written. Somebody somewhere is always going to just not jive with your book, probably more times than you would like. And that's fine. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad writer, but you do need to look at your work, what you're trying to accomplish, what the responses to your work are in general, and to be honest with yourself as to whether or not you are accomplishing that goal. You also don't need to credential check anybody who just has an opinion on a book. And nobody really does that if you're complaining about Fourth Wing or Haunting Adeline. But if you complain about other books, they want to know, well, what allows you to actually have this opinion? Like, I received a question on my submit a topic thing asking what my credentials were for criticizing the ALA banned books list. I'm a reader. I don't need credentials to talk about a book. Nobody does. I'm just a person sharing my stupid opinion. I don't know how to navigate people's opinions. And so what I'm saying here too in general is just like explore, play, have fun, explore what you want to do, who you want to be, write what you want to write. There is no one way to be, but just try to find your voice, your character, and know that not every reader is going to be your reader. And that is an important thing to internalize, to think about, and to save yourself the heartache of sending people who are not your readers your book. And also to get critique partners that are going to help you become a better version of you, not tear you down. The desired style and content between literary and commercial fiction is very loud, and the tips and suggestions will generally not be the same. So if you're asking somebody outside of your genre to read you and give you feedback, just know what you are likely going to get and how to navigate that. And eventually you will build up a tougher skin on how to navigate that sort of information. What actually pisses me off, though, is the number of people who pick up writing just because and think that they're just good because now they've put words onto a page. They don't put any business, any time into learning the craft, into learning what prose is and how prose compares to other mediums. And they think as soon as they put words down on a page the first time, then they're done. You've also got the people that say, like, I just started writing, but I need somebody to tell me if it's worth a damn before I continue by wasting my time. I just started, though. That's like me showing some of my first drawings and being like, should I continue drawing, though? Like, am I any good at drawing? Everybody has to start somewhere and you have to work up the hill. And I don't know why, for some reason, people don't consider writing to be a skill that you have to learn at. Maybe it's because you can just put words down and it's harder to absorb whether it's good or not. And because of the subjectivity of it, it's harder. But writing is so undermined by people just like, oh, anything is good. Nobody can say anything bad because then it's mean. I don't know. Nobody in no other situation can you just pick up something that is skilled work and then think that you need affirmation from outsiders and then all of a sudden you're a pro. I don't know why that is so popular in this medium, but I think that you will do yourself a lot of favors by learning your style, learning what you're trying to do, exploring, playing, finding people that you trust, and recognizing writing is an art form. Writing is a craft, unless, you know, you're doing the craftsman side where you're trying to learn specifically how to do specific in a genre and then just write commercial circles. Then good luck to you. I can't help with that. But you will help yourself out by knowing what it is you're trying to do, what it is you're doing, and pursuing in that direction. And also by knowing that there is no one correct way to do anything. You will never avoid criticism. We all get it. And it will make you a better person to learn how to cope with it. With that said, this video, I hope, helps with something. I'm not entirely sure, but helps with something. With that said, let me know your thoughts on the subject of writing advice, people that give writing advice in general, writing advice books, all of the above. With that said, have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead. Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?